Japan is an archipelago in East Asia, composed of over 6,800 islands, stretching from the icy north of Hokkaido to the subtropical south of Okinawa. Its geography, including mountains, rivers, and fertile plains, shaped the development of civilization on these islands. Early human settlements date back thousands of years, with archaeological evidence indicating that communities existed as far back as 14,000 years ago during the Jomon period. The people of this era were hunter-gatherers who utilized stone tools and produced some of the earliest known pottery, reflecting the beginnings of organized society and craftsmanship. Following the Jomon period, the Yayoi period, starting around 300 BCE, saw the introduction of rice cultivation, metal tools, and more permanent settlements. Agriculture transformed society, allowing populations to grow and communities to organize more complex social structures. The islands saw the emergence of local clans, who controlled territories and established networks for trade, resource management, and governance. Interaction between communities facilitated technological advancement, including the production of bronze and iron implements, and the construction of dwellings suited to seasonal variations. By the 3rd century CE, the Yamato clan began consolidating power, establishing a central authority over much of the main islands. This centralization laid the foundations for governance structures that would evolve over centuries. During this period, significant developments occurred in agriculture, craftsmanship, and political organization. Communities implemented irrigation techniques, expanded rice paddies, and improved methods for storing and distributing resources. Trade between regions increased, encouraging economic growth and technological exchange. In the subsequent centuries, Japan's society continued to evolve. Cities began to emerge as administrative and commercial centers. Roads, river transport, and coastal shipping networks enabled the movement of goods and ideas. Literacy and record-keeping became increasingly important for administration, taxation, and planning. Architecture advanced, with early construction techniques laying the groundwork for more complex urban and rural structures. The classical era of Japan, encompassing the Nara and Heian periods, saw the establishment of permanent capitals and structured governments. Administrative institutions were formalized, legal codes were written, and bureaucratic systems developed to manage the growing complexity of society. Economic policies encouraged trade, agricultural productivity, and artisanal production. Craftsmen, builders, and farmers contributed to the stability and prosperity of the regions. Cities became centers for administration, commerce, and cultural development, with specialized districts for different industries and services. During the Heian period, technological and administrative innovations continued. Standardized land surveys, record-keeping systems, and governance practices improved the efficiency of management. Roads and waterways facilitated the movement of goods and officials, while urban planning organized cities to support administration, commerce, and population growth. The codification of law and development of governance structures allowed for consistent management across multiple provinces, strengthening central authority while maintaining local administration. Trade networks expanded both internally and with neighboring regions. Local products, including textiles, ceramics, and agricultural goods, were exchanged, while innovations in craft, metallurgy, and construction techniques spread across the islands. Population centers continued to grow, supported by agricultural surpluses and organized governance. Social hierarchies and occupational specialization became increasingly defined, contributing to the structure of society and the coordination of large-scale projects. Infrastructure development during this era was notable. Roads, bridges, and ports enabled efficient movement and commerce. Irrigation and flood control systems expanded agricultural capacity. The construction of official buildings and residences followed standardized practices, reflecting the increasing sophistication of urban design. Education and record-keeping supported administration and the spread of practical knowledge across regions, fostering continued growth and stability. By the late classical era, Japan had developed a highly organized society. Central authority coexisted with regional powers, balancing local autonomy with administrative oversight. Economic specialization, urban development, and technological innovation created a foundation upon which the feudal structures of later centuries would emerge. The stages set during this period influenced patterns of governance, trade, and social organization that persisted for centuries. The transition from classical to feudal Japan was gradual. Regional leaders gained influence, often managing territories independently while nominally recognizing central authority. Military organization became increasingly important, as conflicts over land and resources required coordinated strategies and trained forces. The evolution of fortifications, including early forms of castles and defensive settlements, reflected the changing priorities of society. Agricultural expansion, urban growth, and the refinement of governance structures created a resilient and adaptable civilization ready to face the challenges of the coming feudal era. As Japan moved into the feudal era, the balance of power shifted from centralized authorities to regional military leaders. The Kamakura period, beginning in the late 12th century, marked the rise of the shogunate, a system in which military rulers held the real power while the emperor retained a ceremonial position. The shogunate established a hierarchical structure, with samurai warriors overseeing provinces, maintaining order, and managing local governance. Military service became a key aspect of social identity, with loyalty, strategy, and organization forming the backbone of feudal society. During this period, fortifications and early castles became essential for defense and administration. Strategic planning of settlements allowed regional leaders to control trade routes, agricultural production, and population centers. Agricultural techniques continued to improve, with innovations in irrigation and crop management increasing yields and sustaining growing populations. Artisans and merchants developed local economies, producing goods that supported both local needs and trade networks across the islands. The subsequent Muromachi period saw further consolidation of power among regional warlords. Political rivalries occasionally escalated into large-scale conflicts, but these challenges also fostered technological and tactical innovations. The development of swords, armor, and military organization became increasingly sophisticated. At the same time, cities and towns continued to grow, supporting markets, trade, and craft industries. Roads, river transport, and emerging port facilities facilitated commerce and communication, strengthening economic integration across regions. The Sengoku period, often called the Warring States period, was marked by nearly continuous military conflict. Clans competed for territory and influence, leading to advances in strategy, fortification design, and logistical coordination. Leaders organized armies, supplied troops, and established governance in conquered regions. Despite the turbulence, economic activity persisted, as agricultural production, trade, and craftsmanship adapted to shifting political conditions. The population learned to navigate periods of uncertainty, balancing the demands of conflict with the necessities of daily life and commerce. The unification of Japan began in the late 16th century. Military and political consolidation reduced internal conflicts and created a more stable framework for governance. Administrative structures were strengthened, standardizing taxation, law enforcement, and land management. Roads and communication networks expanded, facilitating both military coordination and economic development. Urban centers continued to grow, providing hubs for trade, governance, and artisanal production. The period of unification laid the groundwork for the Tokugawa shogunate, which would bring over 2 centuries of stability. With the establishment of the Tokugawa shogunate in the early 17th century, Japan entered the Edo period. Political authority was centralized, social hierarchies were codified, and a system of strict governance maintained order across the islands. Daimyos, regional lords, were required to maintain residences in Edo, the capital, while managing their own territories. This policy ensured loyalty and centralized oversight while preventing excessive regional autonomy. Economic growth during the Edo period was significant. Agricultural productivity increased, enabling population growth and urban expansion. Markets flourished, producing textiles, ceramics, and other crafts. Trade networks expanded within Japan, connecting rural production centers with urban consumers. Banking and commercial institutions emerged, facilitating the circulation of currency and credit. Cities became centers of culture and commerce, while transportation infrastructure, including roads and river networks, supported domestic trade. Cultural and technological advancements accompanied economic growth. Standardization in construction, urban planning, and governance improved efficiency and quality of life. Artisans perfected techniques in ceramics, textiles, and metalwork, while education and literacy increased among urban populations. Innovations in agriculture, tools, and methods enhanced productivity, supporting further societal development. Administrative systems were refined to manage taxation, population records, and resource allocation, creating a stable and organized society. Despite Japan's policy of limited foreign contact during this period, internal economic and cultural development remained strong. Markets and specialized districts supported sustained growth, and local production was increasingly oriented toward both domestic needs and regional demand. Cities became centers for administration, trade, and craft industries, while rural areas continued to supply essential agricultural products. The balance of governance, economy, and societal organization allowed Japan to maintain stability for over 2 centuries, preparing the nation for the challenges of modernization that would follow in the 19th century. By the mid-19th century, Japan faced growing pressure from foreign powers seeking trade and influence. After centuries of limited contact with the outside world, the arrival of Western naval forces demonstrated the technological and military gap between Japan and industrialized nations. This period prompted significant political and social transformation, culminating in the Meiji Restoration of 1868, when the central government was reorganized, restoring the emperor as the symbolic head of state while creating a modern administrative structure capable of managing a rapidly changing society. The Meiji government implemented sweeping reforms across all sectors of society. The feudal system was dismantled, and land was reorganized under centralized control. Taxation was standardized, and new legal codes were introduced to replace regional and traditional practices. Modern administrative institutions were established, including ministries responsible for finance, education, industry, and infrastructure. Education reforms promoted literacy and technical training, preparing the population to participate in industrial and governmental roles. Industrialization became a central focus. Railways were constructed to connect regions, facilitating trade, transport, and communication. Factories producing textiles, machinery, and tools proliferated, introducing modern manufacturing techniques. Ports were expanded, and shipping networks modernized, allowing Japan to engage in international trade on a larger scale. Urban centers grew rapidly as people moved from rural areas to work in industry, contributing to the development of cities that combined traditional culture with modern infrastructure. Agricultural practices were also modernized. Improved irrigation, new crop varieties, and systematic land management increased productivity. Farmers adopted new methods to sustain growing populations and to support industrial centers. The combination of industrial and agricultural modernization laid the foundation for economic stability and future growth. Military reform was another critical component of Meiji modernization. A national conscription system was introduced, replacing the samurai class as the sole military force. Modern weapons, training, and organizational structures were adopted from Western models, ensuring that Japan could defend its sovereignty and compete internationally. The military became both a symbol of national unity and a practical instrument for maintaining security and projecting power. Infrastructure development extended beyond transportation. Telegraph networks, postal services, and banking institutions were established to support commerce and governance. Urban planning incorporated modern sanitation, water supply, and administrative centers. Factories, warehouses, and commercial districts transformed city landscapes, while educational institutions and technical schools prepared citizens for roles in the evolving economy. The Japanese economy diversified and expanded during this period. Domestic markets grew, regional trade networks flourished, and export industries developed. Textiles, metal goods, and industrial products became key components of economic growth. Economic policies encouraged private enterprise, technological adoption, and the development of financial institutions capable of supporting large-scale commerce and investment. Social changes accompanied modernization. Class distinctions shifted as opportunities expanded beyond the traditional hierarchy. Education enabled mobility and technical expertise, while urbanization created new social dynamics. Population growth in cities required new approaches to housing, public health, and infrastructure, leading to innovations in municipal administration and urban management. By the early 20th century, Japan had transformed into a modern industrial nation. Political, economic, and social reforms created the framework for continued growth and international engagement. The foundations laid during the Meiji era allowed Japan to participate in global trade, develop technological expertise, and establish itself as a competitive nation in the emerging industrial world. This period of transformation was critical for Japan's development, bridging the gap between a feudal, agrarian society and a modern industrial state. The integration of infrastructure, education, industry, and military capability set the stage for the challenges and achievements of the 20th century, demonstrating the nation's ability to adapt, innovate, and progress without relying on past hierarchical or religious structures. Following the rapid modernization of the Meiji era, Japan entered a period of international expansion and internal consolidation during the early 20th century. Industrial capacity had increased substantially, urban centers had grown, and technological expertise allowed the nation to compete on a global scale. By the time Emperor Taisho assumed the throne in 1912, Japan had become a regional power, with influence extending into Asia through both economic and strategic initiatives. Japan participated in World War I on the side of the Allies, primarily to secure and expand its interests in Asia. Industrial production expanded to support military and economic goals, while domestic policies encouraged urban development and modernization. Trade relationships were strengthened, and infrastructure projects, including railways, ports, and telecommunication systems, continued to enhance connectivity across the islands. In the interwar years, Japan experienced both economic growth and social challenges. Industrial expansion created urban job opportunities, but rapid urbanization placed pressure on housing, sanitation, and public services. The government implemented policies to manage population growth, develop transportation networks, and modernize cities to support both commerce and daily life. Education systems were expanded to provide technical and administrative skills needed in an industrialized society. During the early Showa period, Japan pursued further expansion in East Asia. Economic and military strategies focused on securing resources, trade routes, and influence. Urban centers continued to develop, with factories, administrative offices, and residential areas expanding to accommodate both population growth and industrial demand. Social structures adapted to support the needs of a modern industrial state engaged in regional affairs, balancing domestic governance with international ambitions. World War II had profound effects on Japan's infrastructure, economy, and population. The nation mobilized its industry, workforce, and urban centers to support the war effort. Cities became hubs for manufacturing and logistics, while resource management and transportation systems were optimized for efficiency. Civilian life was heavily impacted, as urban populations adapted to rationing, air raids, and social pressures imposed by wartime demands. The end of World War II in 1945 marked a dramatic turning point. Urban centers suffered extensive damage, industry was disrupted, and the social fabric faced the challenge of rebuilding. The nation entered a period of occupation and reconstruction, which required coordinated efforts across government, industry, and society. Policies focused on rebuilding infrastructure, restoring public services, and re-establishing economic stability. Education, healthcare, and housing were prioritized to support a population emerging from the strains of conflict. Despite the devastation, Japan's resilience became evident in the immediate post-war years. Industrial production gradually recovered, cities were reconstructed, and social systems adapted to new demands. The foundations laid during the pre-war modernization and industrialization periods provided a framework for rapid recovery. Urban planning incorporated lessons from wartime destruction, emphasizing efficient transportation, resource management, and public services to support growing populations and economic development. The period between 1912 and 1945 illustrates Japan's capacity to adapt to both global pressures and internal challenges. Industrialization, urbanization, and technological development enabled the nation to engage with the world on an unprecedented scale, while also demonstrating the vulnerabilities inherent in rapid expansion and conflict. This era set the stage for Japan's post-war economic growth and transformation into one of the leading industrialized nations of the late 20th century. The conclusion of World War II left Japan with widespread destruction in its cities, a collapsed economy, and the challenge of rebuilding a nation from the ruins. Occupied by Allied forces, Japan underwent significant political and economic reforms. The post-war constitution established democratic institutions, decentralized government authority, and guaranteed civil liberties. These reforms provided a foundation for long-term stability, allowing the nation to focus on reconstruction and modernization. Economic recovery was a primary focus during the late 1940s and 1950s. Urban centers were rebuilt using modern construction methods, transportation networks were restored and expanded, and industrial capacity was revived. Investments in infrastructure, energy, and manufacturing allowed production to resume quickly. Agricultural reforms redistributed land and increased productivity, ensuring a stable food supply for the recovering population. By the 1960s, Japan entered a period known as the economic miracle. Rapid industrial growth, technological innovation, and export-oriented strategies transformed the nation into one of the world's leading economies. Automobile production, electronics, and shipbuilding became major industries, creating jobs and fueling urban expansion. Cities grew vertically and horizontally, incorporating modern urban planning, transportation networks, and public services to accommodate rising populations. Education and workforce development were central to post-war growth. Universal education and technical training programs prepared citizens for employment in manufacturing, research, and administration. Literacy and skill levels rose sharply, contributing to technological advancement and productivity. Universities and technical institutes became centers for innovation, supporting industries and creating a highly skilled labor force. Social changes accompanied economic development. Urbanization transformed lifestyles, creating new social dynamics, residential patterns, and consumer habits. Public health, housing, and transportation systems were modernized to accommodate growing populations. Social institutions adapted to balance traditional practices with contemporary urban life, creating a society capable of sustaining rapid industrial and technological advancement. By the 1980s, Japan had established itself as a global economic powerhouse. High-quality industrial production, advanced infrastructure, and technological innovation positioned Japan as a leader in manufacturing, electronics, and international trade. Urban centers such as Tokyo, Osaka, and Yokohama became modern metropolises, featuring efficient transportation systems, commercial hubs, and residential communities designed to support both work and daily life. Entering the 1990s and beyond, Japan faced new challenges and opportunities. Globalization, technological development, and demographic changes required adaptations in governance, economy, and urban management. The nation shifted toward a knowledge-based economy, emphasizing research, information technology, and innovation. Urban infrastructure continued to develop, incorporating smart systems, public transportation, and sustainable planning to meet contemporary needs. Cultural continuity remained strong throughout these transformations. While urbanization and technology advanced, traditional practices in craftsmanship, arts, and regional culture continued to influence society. Economic and technological achievements were balanced with preservation of heritage, reflecting the nation's ability to integrate progress with identity. Contemporary Japan is a nation characterized by resilience, adaptability, and innovation. From the reconstruction after war to the technological and industrial achievements of the late 20th and early 21st centuries, Japan demonstrates the capacity to overcome challenges, adapt to global trends, and sustain social and economic development. Its cities, industries, and institutions reflect centuries of continuous growth, learning, and modernization, culminating in a nation that blends historical experience with contemporary advancement. The history of Japan, from ancient settlements to a modern global power, illustrates a continuous story of adaptation, development, and progress. Through agriculture, governance, industry, urbanization, and technology, the nation has transformed over millennia. This continuous narrative, now complete, reflects the enduring resilience, ingenuity, and organizational skill of Japan, providing a detailed record suitable for study, reflection, and understanding of one of the world's most remarkable civilizations. As we reflect on the entirety of Japan's history, a clear pattern of adaptation, resilience, and progress emerges. From the earliest settlements along rivers and coasts to the development of organized communities during the Jomon and Yayoi periods, Japan's people continually responded to the challenges of geography, climate, and social organization. Agriculture, trade, and the management of resources laid the foundation for more complex societies and the eventual emergence of centralized governance. Over the classical and feudal eras, Japan's society evolved structures that balanced local autonomy with centralized administration. Military organization, economic management, and urban development progressed in tandem, demonstrating an ability to sustain growth while adapting to political and social changes. Urban centers flourished, infrastructure expanded, and technologies improved, providing stability and the means for cultural and economic development. During the Edo period, the nation experienced a long phase of internal stability, economic growth, and urbanization. Systems of governance, taxation, and social order allowed both rural and urban populations to thrive. Markets, craftsmanship, and trade networks expanded, creating a self-sustaining economy that would support the later transformation into a modern industrial state. The Meiji Restoration marked the beginning of rapid modernization, integrating industry, education, infrastructure, and governance into a cohesive system capable of competing on the global stage. Urban centers expanded, industrial production increased, and technological knowledge spread throughout the population. Military and economic reforms strengthened the nation, preparing it to navigate the complexities of the 20th century. Japan's experience through the early and mid-20th century, including its industrial growth, international engagements, and the challenges of war, highlights the nation's capacity for both achievement and recovery. Despite conflict and devastation, Japan adapted quickly, rebuilding its infrastructure, economy, and social systems in the post-war period. The post-war economic miracle exemplifies Japan's resilience and innovative spirit. Industrial production, technological advancement, and urban planning transformed the nation into a global economic leader. Education, workforce development, and social organization supported continued growth, while urban centers became modern hubs for commerce, culture, and technology. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of Japan, from its earliest settlements to the modern era. We've explored centuries of growth, innovation, and resilience, witnessing how a nation adapted to challenges and flourished through the ages. The story of Japan is one of continuous progress, and its lessons inspire appreciation for the strength and ingenuity of human society. If you enjoyed this in-depth exploration and want to continue discovering more fascinating stories, history, and culture from around the world, make sure to subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll stay updated with our latest videos, deep dives, and educational content designed to expand your knowledge and curiosity. Hit the subscribe button now, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Join our growing community of viewers who are passionate about learning, exploring, and uncovering the remarkable stories of our world. Your support helps us create more high-quality, long-form content that you can enjoy and share. Thank you again for watching. Stay curious, stay inspired, and we'll see you in the next video. Subscribe now, and be part of this journey of discovery and knowledge.